Hi folks, we are on video 3 of the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. This is the Minor Arcana series, and we are going to be talking about the blues suit. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back, Rhythm and Soul Tarot readers. This is video number 3 in a series in which I explore the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. We are now in the Minor Arcana. I started with the major arcana, and then after that with the minors with the suit that precedes this suit. So I talked about all 4 suits in the last video, which is about jazz. So please watch that one first because I've already talked about the aces and the idea that the suits follow different musical genres. And to that end, we are now going to talk about the blues suit of the Minor Arcana of the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. I'm Stacey Williams-Ng. I'm the author and the artist behind this deck, and I made this series of videos in order to help people understand the correspondences and the history behind each of the cards. By way of background, I am born and raised in Memphis, and I have a deep family history here. I also spend a lot of time in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I have a lot of good friends there as well, and I have a lot of family in Mississippi. So the blues is something that I've grown up around and I feel really close to. My grandfather made his own banjo and was taught by Gus Cannon. So there's just been a lot of exposure to the blues in my family. If you would like to learn more about blues history, I have a couple of resources for you before we even get into this. One of them is just go to Clarksdale, Mississippi. Do the Blues Highway, do Highway 61 from Memphis all the way down to New Orleans. It goes along the west coast of Mississippi. There's a place called Cat Head that you should stop at because Roger Stoll started this. This is the bandana of Cat Head. Look them up. Roger Stoll is the author of several books like Juke Joint Confidential. He's a historian and also the shop owner for this folk art place that I bought the bandana from. And Roger is just a fountain of information about the juke joints and so on. So he's a modern day Alan Lomax, if you will. Alan Lomax, who wrote a couple of books, The Land Where Blues Began is probably one of the most famous ones. But he wrote this in, I guess, 1941, I think, early 40s, on a typewriter. And he got to interview these fantastic artists when they were still sharecroppers and really played an important integral role in getting their music out to the world. So if you want to know more about blues history, visit Memphis, go down the Blues Highway. You'll love it. Okay, but let's talk about the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. The suit of cups in a traditional tarot deck represents the element of water. And so I made my element of water suit blues. The ace is a jug, which is used in jug bands as an instrument. And as I said in my last video, in each of my suits, the page of that suit is shown, it's a child shown playing the instrument that's in the ace. So we're going to see this jug again when we get to the page card. The Two of Blues. So the Two of Cups is typically a very romantic card. Some say even more romantic than the Lovers. In my deck, I just went hard with friendship. I felt like this was an opportunity to illustrate the concept of deep friendships, deep bonds, a meeting of the mind, a meeting of equals, people who are true partners, whether that's a love match or a friendship match or even a business match. So to me, that's how I like to read the Two of Cups when I'm reading tarot. So that's how I made it in my tarot. And in this image, we have 2 sharecroppers. Blues music came from the sharecropper fields of Mississippi. And so here we have 2 fictional gentlemen that I painted as being very different in personality. But of course, they're wearing similar clothes. They have to do the same hard work. But I really wanted their faces to portray that they're not the same, but they are tight and they would fight to the death for each other. They've got some iced tea too. There's their 2 cups. It's iced tea that they've brought with their lunch. The Three of Blues is not blues per se. It's more gospel or hymns. And it shows 3 women in the river. This also harkens to the preacher card. If you watch the first video in this series with the major arcana, you'll know that my Hierophant is a preacher in the river. Here we have three African American women singing all the same tune, which is almost like the three muses, the way the three muses dance together in perfect harmony. The three of blues represents those deep friendships, that bond that can't be broken, singing from the same hymn book, so to speak, in a deep and spiritual way. The four of blues. The Four of Cups, the Four of Blues, is often about apathy and not understanding the blessings that you still have. It's boredom. There's the classic scene of the young man sitting under a tree. And what I have is a fellow who's probably also a sharecropper sitting in front of his shack, his sharecropper shack, and he's depressed. And why wouldn't he be depressed? This is the era of Jim Crow. He doesn't have any money at all. He's got a bunch of Hamm's beer cans. I've already had people review this online and see that they're Hamm's. They're like, oh my God. But we have three empties and then a full. Just like in the typical Four of Cups, you have the hand of heaven is showing you that fourth cup of water, but you're not looking because you're so focused on what you've lost. It's a different way of looking at it. The Five of Blues is in a Mississippi scene. She's by a creek on a bleak day, and she is feeling bleak grief. So we basically have cups that have spilled. And not unlike the four, she also has two behind her that she's not appreciating. She's not appreciating those blessings. But the five goes harder than the four. The five is truly about grief and heartbreak, whereas the four is more about apathy and boredom. This one delves deeper into our feelings. The Six of Blues. So I took a completely different approach than the traditional Six of Cups. The Six of Blues is a church scene. And if you look carefully up on the church wall, I've done 6 chalices as decorations on the wall, which harkens back to the Six of Cups. But because this card is so often about family memories and fond memories, if you think about the musician's journey, so many musicians began in the church, especially in the Black community and especially down south. And so this child is us. This is that childhood memory of just pure joy in music. The first time you felt the magic of music, the connection with someone who was giving you and passing down something to you. So there's this beautiful moment of the older, she's a young woman, but the adult passing down the tradition of song to the child. The Seven of Cups, the Seven of Blues, is supposed to be about dreams and possibilities and hallucinations and imagination. And it's like all the possibilities card. And so for me, I thought about how can I do 7 cups of different things? And then it came to me, it's like hoodoo remedies. Now, it would be presumably hoodoo remedies or just folk remedies from the South because we're in the blues suit. But really, this could apply to any of them. This could apply to Ozark remedies, to Appalachian remedies. Down south, we've had to do herbal healing for a long time because there weren't a lot of doctors down here. So we have been relying on plants. And these present all of those opportunities for healing. Different kinds of healing, protection, maybe just soothing coughs, but it's 7 different possibilities. The 8. It's the pack up and go home card, the 8 of Cups. So the 8 of Blues shows a woman, if you look carefully, there's a woman walking with a suitcase, walking away into a rainy day. And she has decided that even though things are growing, she did plant things here and things are happening. It's not enough and it's not right for her. So she is leaving. She is out the door. The 9. So I have a story about this. The 9 of Cups was really, really stumping me. I didn't know what I wanted to do to show the concept of this, winning awards, having gotten to a place where you're almost at completion. And it often shows a guy that has, these beautiful 9 chalices behind him as though they were rewards for his hard work. And I had just been to Clarksdale, Mississippi for a blues fest, and I had heard about this gentleman who offered to get up on stage and play the harmonica. And he got up on that stage and played the harmonica and was so happy. And they asked him, they said, "Do you play on stage often?" He said, "No, this was my first time. I've never done it before." And then God bless him, he had a heart attack and fell off the stage. And the man passed away. And when I heard this story, everyone told the story like, but it was the happiest day of his life. And so he inspired me for my 9 of Blues cards. The 10 of Blues is about, I often think of the 10 of Cups as like the retirement card. It shows the old king with his dog and his whole family and his castle, and everything has come to fruition. All his dreams have come true. So here we have a Black family who have really made it, who are wealthy in a beautiful home, and they have 10 cups as details on their Victorian home. Got the dog. That's actually my dog, Josie. But this is a fictional family that I invented that are all sitting on the steps for a family portrait. And so this gentleman, if you will, is kind of like that king who has everything. He's really made it in this life, and he's very proud of this loving family that he has been the patriarch of all these years. The page. So I told you that the page in this is always going to be interacting with or using the instrument, and I was a little stumped as to how a little boy could appropriately use a whiskey jug. So he's using it on his fishing trip, which really works out because the Page of Cups has a fish jumping out of his cup. So this is a boy who's learning how to fish. He's out in rural Mississippi. Maybe he hears his family play the blues all the time. Maybe he's whistling a tune to himself. But we have the fish and the water and the correspondence of using the instrument. Page of Cups is really the romantic page that's about really going after that creativity. Knight of Blues. This is the hopeless romantic knight. So I always think of this as like a Prince Charming, and typically the knights are not female energy, but I just kept seeing this lovely romantic singer out in nature by the stream with spring flowers and a butterfly and the sun on her hair and face. And to me, this was the Knight of Cups. So let's talk about the Queen. So just like in the jazz suit, I wanted my queens and my kings to be inspired by real musicians. So she's a little bit of an amalgam of different musicians, but predominantly she reminds me of Bessie Smith. And she has that road-worn look on her face, like she's been on the road performing and she's exhausted. Remember, the Queen of Cups, or the Queen of Blues, is meant to signify a woman of deep, deep feelings, a woman who is caring, someone who is ruled by her heart, someone who is compassionate. And if you read the story of Bessie Smith, or if you watch that movie that was made about her life, played by Queen Latifah, you'll know that Bessie Smith in many ways really personified this. So having a blues star that really personified that quality of leadership was really important to me. And the King of Blues. I'm sure many of you recognize Robert Johnson in this. I painted a version of that very famous photograph of Robert Johnson with the feather in his cap. And he's seated in a brown leather chair. And I have put the devil behind him. Because if you're familiar with the famous story of Robert Johnson, he allegedly sold his soul to the devil in a pact to become famous. He said, and so there have been so many songs in addition to Crossroad Blues, which was his song, but there have been so many songs that actually talk about Robert Johnson or just anybody selling their soul to the devil. It became a whole trope in blues music and really in rock music afterwards. So that is the suit of blues. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it embodies the feeling and the life of the heart. And as always, when you're looking at these, feel free for your reader to provide the classical interpretations of a 6 of Cups or a 5 of Cups, but also use your intuition and think about what these pictures represent culturally here in America, and see if you can find ways to make that relevant to your querent or to yourself. Okay, the next video, we're going to explore the axes or the rock and roll suit. Stay tuned.